Welcome back to another SCP Resurrection reading, dear researcher. Today we'll be reading New Tricks by Dr. Clef and the Deadly Moose. It should be noted that no dogs die in this story. New Tricks, or Youth Culture Killed My Dog. 2 weeks ago, in an unnamed garage in a facility that didn't exist, a dog was trying to repair a hydraulic servo. He raised his paw and tapped away on the specially built keyboard that he'd had put together for him, back when his lab was bigger and better stocked. The robotic arms reassembled the servo and plugged it into the pump. The process was slow. So damn slow. The dog remembered a time less than a decade ago when he'd been the head of a major Foundation department. Back then, research and development had been the most exciting place to be in the Foundation. A whirlwind of discovery, and he had been the eye of the storm, one of the bright stars of the Foundation, a researcher filled with such vibrant energy that not even being involuntarily transformed into a dog could keep him down. 9 years ago, everyone in the Foundation had known his codename, Cain Pathos Crow. 9 years ago. He stretched his legs out, whimpering at the pain in his hips. Arthritis, his vet had told him. I'll try glucosamine injections and painkillers if it gets too bad, but it's a problem not uncommon to the breed. He tapped a button. The needle on the gauge went up. It hovered around the line that he knew was red. There was a sudden crack and the buzzing of an alert siren. A spray of hydraulic fluid spurted from the servo's joint and splattered against the far wall of the garage. The dog growled angrily at the keyboard and smacked his paw against a big yellow button. The pressure went back down. The spray of hydraulic fluid ceased. Still trying to get that old thing fixed up? A smarmy voice asked. A man was walking into the room, carrying a watermelon in a neat little carrying bag made of braided nylon ropes. The dog was surprised. He didn't often get unannounced visitors. Maybe Dr. Mann and Agent Lament again? Proposed to drag him along on yet another ill-conceived mission. No. It didn't smell like either of them. Then the dog saw that the visitor had a huge Cheshire cat grin, and his eyes hurt to look at. And his nose was too big for his ugly face. Cliff! Professor Cain Pathos Crow said. Crow! Dr. Altoclav put the melon down on a nearby table, ruthlessly clearing it of its clutter of wires and transistors with a sweep of his arm. Do you have that neat laser cutter thing? He asked. Would be easier to slice this with than a knife. Put it on the work table over there, Professor Crow said. I'll set up the cutter. Clef complied, as Cain rummaged through a big pile of miscellaneous gadgets before finally finding what he was looking for. A big gray box with a Danger Laser sticker haphazardly plastered onto the side. Would you mind attaching it to a robot arm for me? Cain said. I'd do it myself, but, no thumbs. No problem, Clef said. Power plugs in here? Yeah. You'll want to get some duct tape to attach it a bit more firmly. The bayonet mount broke a while back, and I haven't had time to repair it. Haven't had the time, or haven't had the inclination? Clef asked. He dug at the open end of the roll of duct tape a bit until it came loose. then began to wrap it tightly around where the laser cutter attached to the robot arm. Doesn't really seem like the kind of thing that would have stopped you in the past.
I had an entire department in the past. These days, I have to do everything myself,
Kane said. He was also permitted the assistance of a few robotic devices, which he was grateful for. It got more and more awkward to deal with the few assistants he had sometimes, especially when the ones who'd become used to his usual appearance got rotated out. He slid his paw along the oversized touchpad, maneuvering the crosshairs over the image of the watermelon, then began programming in the motion commands to the robot arm.
It could be worse,
He admitted.
I could be in a kennel or a shelter waiting to be put down.
They'd never do that, not to one of the Foundation's heroes.
Oh, heroes.
Kane said bitterly.
Not many of those left in the Foundation these days.
Not as many psychopaths either, Clef pointed out. And you can read a containment report without slopping through pages of useless commentary from every single member of the peanut gallery who thought they had something to say. He stepped back from the table and picked up a pair of darkened goggles. One of the lenses was slightly cracked.
That's something at least,
Kane admitted.
Hand me that hood over there.
Clef picked up the hood and draped it over Kane's head, carefully arranging the darkened glass lenses over the dog's eyes. The professor tapped a couple more keys on the laser, watching the simulation play out, then hit the big red button. There was a whirring sound and the smell of ozone, and a bright blue flash from the workbench. When their vision cleared, the watermelon had been sliced into 6 even pieces. Heh, looks like it still works just fine, Clef said.
Is that supposed to be a metaphor?
Kane asked. If you choose to take it that way, yeah. Clef picked up one of the watermelon wedges and laid the other one down on the cracked ceramic dish by Kane's cushioned bed. The gray-muzzled golden retriever lay down on the cushion and took a bite of the sweet, juicy red melon. The two old friends sat in silence for a while, enjoying their snack in companionable silence. Still trying to get the old girl working? Clef asked, gesturing to the hulking behemoth that lay in pieces all around the garage.
Primary servo in the right hip keeps failing under pressure,
Kane said.
If I had the budget, I'd have the entire thing remilled. If I had permission, I'd recreate the original recipe through 914. As it is, I'm trying different wheels and patches. None of them seem to hold.
He took a big bite of his watermelon, crunching away as he chewed the crisp red fruit. Might want to double down on that, Clef said. Some big, powerful people might come by asking you to get it working again. Kane stopped eating. He stared intently at Clef, who was spitting his watermelon seeds into a rusty coffee can.
All right, you conniving old fuck,
the dog growled.
What do you know that you're not telling me?
Clef tossed his watermelon rind back onto the work table and brought 2 fresh wedges of melon over for him and the professor. There was an incident yesterday, Clef said. Code Tempest Twilight at Site 17. An unknown outside force assaulted the facility. There were casualties and several containment breaches. One of those breaches was SCP-105.
Irish, huh? So Dan Tenson finally got his wish, may he rest in peace,
Crow said sadly.
I don't think anyone will chase her, given that they've got her camera locked away inside a vault.
105 didn't run, Clef said. She picked up a sidearm off a dead agent's corpse and helped Site Security to fend off the attackers.
Iris? Picked up a gun and fought back? That shy little girl?
She's not a shy little girl anymore, Crow, Clef said. 9 years will change you. 9 years locked up in a cell will change you a lot more. But the important thing is that even without her camera, 105 was a useful and capable asset. She was loyal to her jailers, even when she had every chance to bug out. So now the higher ups are starting to get ideas, and some of them are pointing out that we've been falling behind in our efforts, and we've got an entire stockpile of assets sitting around not being utilized. And then, eventually, one of them will remember a little experiment that we tried under General Bowie that we've kept shuttered for 9 years as the worst idea the Foundation ever had.
Pandora's box,
Kane said. Bingo, Clef said. And then they're going to come to the surviving old fucks who did it the first time and ask us to do it again. The question now becomes, what do we say to them?
taking a dump on their shoes would seem like an appropriate response.
Kane pointed out.
They tossed us out into the cold.
Did they? Clef asked. If they were going to toss us out into the cold, they would have given us the Kondraki or Dantensen treatment. He smiled viciously. We're mothballed, Crow, like old battleships. Turned into museum pieces, but kept intact in case they ever needed us to go to war again. But, unlike old battleships, we can choose whether or not we want to be reactivated or not. The two old friends continued to munch their watermelon in thoughtful silence.
Fuck 'em,
Kane said at last. Yeah, fuck them right up the ass, Clef agreed.
We did what they wanted to once. Followed orders like good soldiers. What did that get us?
Nothing at all, Clef agreed. They used us like snot rags and tossed us in the trash.
There's no way I'm getting involved with that politicking and scheming again,
Kane said. I'm done with killing, Clef said coldly. There's enough blood on my hands without adding more.
So, we're going to say no,
Kane said. We're going to say no, Clef agreed. Clef fiddled with his half-eaten watermelon slice for a moment. Professor Kane stared intently at the green and yellow patterns in its rind.
They're going to use her against you,
Kane said at last. And they're going to offer you the one thing you can't say no to, Clef pointed out.
In the end, it doesn't matter what we want,
Kane said.
Those puppeteers have us on their strings, and will do as they wish.
He nudged his empty watermelon rind away from himself with his gray muzzled nose. Clef took one huge bite of his melon. His grin turned positively shark-like. Then we'd better milk them for all we can get in the process, Clef said, spewing bits of melon and juice from his half-full mouth. When his vet came to see him days later, the dog was refitting a hydraulic servo back into a gigantic egg-shaped robot. Hello, Professor, the man said. He was a balding white man in his 50s or 60s, wearing a lab coat and carrying a medical bag.
Hi, Gog,
Kane said. How are you feeling today? Gears asked. He opened up his bag and began laying out his instruments and supplies on the table. His tone was flat, his voice expressionless. In others, his mannerism would have seemed cold. Kane knew better. Gears was not a veterinarian by trade, but after Kane had been confined to this facility, Gears had one day announced that he had studied and achieved competency in the field of veterinary medicine and asked to be assigned as Kane's personal physician. Administration had said yes. It wasn't often that someone like Gears did something touching. The golden retriever climbed carefully onto the low table. Gears began his examination, weight measurements, a stethoscope to the heart and lungs, taking pulse, checking for swelling in lymph nodes, palpating the abdomen for tumors or abnormalities, teeth and claws, paws and limbs. Slight deterioration in the hips, Gears murmured. The glucosamine seems to be having an effect. We'll try upping the dosage. He examined Kane's face closely. A few more gray hairs around the muzzle.
In other words, not too bad for a 15-year-old dog, but pretty shitty for a 35-year-old man,
Kane said. Indeed, Gears said calmly. He put down his stethoscope and picked up a scaling tool. Some development of calculus around the gum line, he said. Surprising.
My toothbrushing robot broke down. I've been using dentist sticks,
Kane said. I suggest getting it repaired, Gears said. In the meantime, I'll do a teeth cleaning. It was a long and boring process as Gears carefully scraped the plaque building up along Kane's teeth. He was just finishing up with the molars when another figure entered. Kane wasn't surprised. He'd been expecting this visitor for a long time. The intruder was a black woman of medium height in a pine-striped suit. Her hair was curly and her mouth was smiling. Professor Crow, I presume, she said. Dr. Gears, I'm 05-10.
No, you're not,
Kane said. His words mumbled around Gears's dental equipment. The woman gave him an old look.
Sorry.
He waited for Gears to extract his cleaning tools from his mouth.
But no, you don't smell like an 05. They all have... well, you don't smell like one.
Good to know, the woman said. You are, of course, correct. I am not, in fact, 05-10. I am, in truth, her decoy. I'm called Salt. That is, of course, classified at the highest level. I do not need to tell you the consequences if you breathe a word of this to anyone I trust. Affirm.
Yeah, sure,
Kane said. Excellent, Salt said. In that case, I would like to direct you to begin research into the issue of the anomalous scent that surrounds members of the O5 Council, provided, of course, you can do so in between your other projects. She extended a large stack of papers to the golden retriever.
Cog?
Kane asked. Of course. Dr. Gears picked up the stack of papers and helped Kane to arrange them into a machine that looked like a cross between a music stand and a microfiche reader. It hummed and crunched and whirred, and then began to project images of the pages onto a screen big enough for his tired old dog eyes to read them clearly. It was all there. The egg walker, the power suit, the sonic pulse cannon, the heat-seeking atomic disruptor, the harmonic dispersion wand, and one more. Project Olympia. Its shuttering had been the biggest heartbreak of all. Hot damn, Kane thought, his tail wagging unconsciously. We're back in business! And there we have it. Dr. Kane Pathos Crow, inventor extraordinaire, has been reactivated. But that's all the time we have for today, dear researcher. Thank you very much for coming. It has been an honor reading for you. Good luck out there, and I hope to see you next time.